he reached out, he wrote like a text saying, listen, sorry how this all...
Jon Jones reached out to Dana White via text, apologizing for the entire situation and expressing serious interest in fighting at the White House event. However, when White appeared on a podcast in September 2025 and was directly asked if Jones's apology changed his perspective, the response was definitive and crushing. White simply said no, not maybe, not we'll see, just an unequivocal rejection that would define Jones's exclusion from the biggest UFC event in history.
You said Jon Jones called you, and he apologized. What was...
White's position hardened further by November 2025 during his appearance on the Flagrant podcast, where he detailed exactly why he couldn't trust Jones anymore. The issue wasn't talent or marketability, it was reliability. White explained that he had made a concrete deal with Jones, not a tentative agreement or preliminary discussion, but a firm commitment. When that deal fell apart due to Jones backing out, it shattered the trust that's essential for an event of this magnitude.
He reached out, he wrote like a text saying, listen, sorry how this all played out or whatever. You know, I want to fight at the White House. I'm serious about that.
And then came the question.
White contrasted Jones with fighters like Conor McGregor, who he described as someone who shows up regardless of circumstances, doesn't call dozens of people seeking opinions, and simply asks who he's fighting. That comparison revealed everything about White's mindset. He didn't need the most talented fighter on paper, he needed someone who would absolutely positively be there when the lights came on. By February 2026, when White sat down with matchmaker Mick Maynard to finalize the White House card, Jones wasn't even part of the conversation because the door had been permanently sealed.
Him reaching out and doing that, but I need people I can count on for this fight.
The breaking point traced back to June 21st, 2025, the night everything changed for the heavyweight division. Following UFC on ABC 8 in Baku, Azerbaijan, White stood before cameras and delivered an announcement that sent shockwaves through MMA. Jon Jones had called him that evening to announce his retirement from fighting. In the same breath, White declared Tom Aspinall the undisputed heavyweight champion, ending nearly 2 years of painful negotiations and false starts that had paralyzed the division.
And I know who they are. I know who they are not.
The path to that phone call had been torturous, with White having guaranteed the Jones-Aspinall fight would happen 100% after UFC 309 in December 2024. Behind the scenes, reports suggested Jones demanded $30 million or more while dealing with his own physical limitations. Joe Rogan revealed on his podcast that Jones wasn't even training between fights and would need 6 months just to get back into fighting shape. When Jones finally made the call to retire, it lasted all of 2 days before he was at the ESPYs talking about comebacks, perfectly illustrating why White had lost all faith in his word.
I haven't said yes or no to anybody yet, but I can't put Jon Jones in a position where he can...
The White House card represents something unprecedented in combat sports history. A UFC event on the South Lawn of the White House, timed to coincide with America's 250th anniversary celebration on June 14th. This isn't just another fight card, but a monument to the sport's growth, featuring only 6-7 fights with a production budget exceeding $20 million, broadcast free on CBS and Paramount Plus to potentially become the most-watched UFC event ever. With infrastructure challenges including leveling the sloping South Lawn, designing lighting that won't obstruct the White House backdrop, and managing the political and logistical complexities of hosting combat sports at the nation's most iconic building, White's tolerance for unreliable fighters dropped to absolute zero.
With him, we had a deal to fight Tom Aspinall.
While matchmaking politics dominated headlines, Jones made revelations about his physical condition that painted an even starker picture of where he stood. At a celebrity flag football event in Las Vegas, he disclosed that severe hip arthritis had progressed to the point where doctors told him he qualified for a hip replacement at just 38 years old. The information first leaked when someone recorded him with metaglasses at a bare-knuckle event, capturing what Jones believed was a private conversation about his deteriorating body after 17 years of professional competition.
He said, you know what, I'm not going to do it.
He didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Daniel Cormier, Jones's greatest rival, watched him at that flag football game and came away convinced that Jones was finished as a fighter. Cormier described watching Dwight Howard run past Jones and seeing how compromised his movement had become. The lateral mobility, running mechanics, and overall athleticism that had defined his dominance were simply gone. Cormier theorized that Jones may have intentionally let the arthritis news leak to provide cover for stepping away without appearing to make excuses, noting that metaglasses have visible recording indicators that someone with Jones's media experience would typically notice.
Jon Jones called us last night and retired.
John Jones is officially retired.
The physical breakdown made perfect sense given Jones's fighting style throughout his career. The oblique kicks that destroyed opponents' knees, the elbows and ground strikes that punished challengers, the wrestling exchanges that built his legend but also accumulated damage in his own body. Cormier even canceled plans for a potential wrestling exhibition match between them, stating bluntly that Jones had nothing left in the tank and that the flag football footage proved it beyond any doubt.
John Jones said he needed 6 months to prepare for Aspinall if he's going to fight Aspinall. So they were trying to make a deal, and then he decided to retire.
6 months.
By February 2026, Jones spoke with a completely different tone during his interview with Helen Yee, admitting he could really care less about fighting anymore. This wasn't the calculated ambiguity of previous retirement flirtations, but the words of someone genuinely ready to turn the page. He described his vision for 2026 as centered on becoming his best self without the demands of competition, focusing on mentoring younger athletes like Olympic gold medalist Gable Steveson, expanding humanitarian work, and investing in family and faith-based initiatives.
But it's 6 months because he's not training, like at all. Like he just doesn't train. Like in between fights, just doesn't train.
Yeah.
Which to me,
The heavyweight division moved forward with remarkable speed under Tom Aspinall's leadership, with the new champion immediately emphasizing activity and regular defenses rather than the drawn-out negotiations that had frozen the weight class. Contenders like Cyril Gane, Sergey Pavlovich, and Jailton Almeida suddenly had clear paths forward without the overhang of a potential Jones comeback muddying the rankings. The title regained its traditional function as a rotating centerpiece, and the division began operating like a normal weight class again after years of paralysis.
They were talking to him like he had been retired for 5 years, and they're like, so like, what's it like being out of retirement now and like going out and training? He's like, oh, I'm so sore. I'm like, he's been retired for 2 days. What are you talking?
Jones's exclusion from the White House card ultimately represented the convergence of broken trust, physical limitations, and a sport that had moved beyond waiting for fighters who might not show up. While he had once been the youngest UFC champion in history, and arguably the greatest light heavyweight ever, his legacy would be defined not by what happened in 2026, but by everything that came before, and everything he chose not to pursue when his body and the business finally told him it was time to stop.
What can you tell us about that? Is that finite? Is that definitely going to happen? Is it something that's just being talked about? What's the situation?
It's done.
Wow.
So we literally just did, my head of production went over there. My ops people went there, went through everything with the president's team. Then the president signed off on everything, and where it goes. I have Zuffa Boxing on the 23rd of this month. 24th is UFC. And as soon as those 2 fights are over, I start working on the White House fight. Literally building that thing, because what I didn't want was a lighting grid blocking out the White House.
And then came the statement that showed just
I'm going to put on, obviously, the card that people expect to be at the White House. That's what I'm going to put together.
For the record, I agree 1,000% with Dana White. The White House card has to be with guys that you can,
no room for interpretation.
has to be with guys that aren't going to embarrass the company. And unfortunately, he's done that. UFC 200, he did that. He's in the midst of something right now. They're going to put a guy who's in the midst of this thing right now on the White House card? No, you put Sean Brady on the White House card.
It is true. I do have arthritis, and the kid that leaked that was an absolute. I was talking to some guys in confidential, and he had one of those metal glasses on like myself, and he ended up posting that. That wasn't for everybody to hear.
I have severe arthritis, and most people don't know that. I actually already qualified for a hip replacement.
But that's how life works. I've been an athlete my whole entire life, and it's just something that comes with it. I think I started sports in 7th grade, and now I'm almost 40 years old. So it comes with it, but I do it all over again. And I feel great. You guys will see today. I'm going to get a warm up. I'm going to be running around, having fun, and doing what I do, baby.
Well, John came out recently and said he is up for a hip surgery already. He might be done. There's a lot of news surrounding John Jones right now. Some of the news would seem to have come to us when it wasn't intended to come. I think that John Jones knew what he was doing. I think that he wanted people to know that he's injured. And I think that's exactly the way that he wanted it to happen, by giving it to an influencer. I believe John Jones is hurt. And I believe John Jones really is dealing with with injuries from a long sustained career in combat sports, where knees and elbows and kicks were such a massive part of his game. The wrestling. I mean, sports from a young age takes a toll on the body to anyone. I truly believe that was the video that made me believe that John Jones doesn't have anything left in that regard. There will be no wrestling match between him and I. Because if that's him, right, in athletics, it would be too hard for him to compete in a wrestling match. His body will not hold up in the training to prepare for a wrestling match. So I think that people should now start to get ready for a day when they don't have Jones in fighting.
I don't want to say that I'm retired because fighting's in my blood. Right now, I could really care less about fighting. I've been doing it my whole life at a very high level. And when the itch comes back,
Jones still left the door.
And if it comes back, then I'll do it with my whole heart. I'll do it to the best of my abilities. But right now, I look around and I realize what's true, what's real. I see the way people look at me and the way I make people feel. And it's an extraordinary thing. It's a true blessing. Now my job is to serve that, give that to my fans, be reachable, touchable, let them know what I have inside. That's who I am right now. I've punched and kicked enough people.